The world remembers grand victories, the triumphant flags planted on distant shores. But sometimes, the greatest victories are whispered in the wind, born not of conquest, but of sheer, desperate survival. This is one such story. This is the story of the Endurance. It begins not with a bang, but with the immense, chilling silence of the Antarctic, a continent that guards its secrets with a frozen fury. The year is 1914, and the air is thick with the scent of adventure and the salt spray of the Southern Ocean. A grand ambition, to be the first to cross this vast, uncharted territory. But the ice, an ancient, primordial force, had its own plans for Ernest Shackleton and his 28 men. The ship, the Endurance, a sturdy vessel built for the harshest conditions, pushed bravely into the pack ice. But this was no ordinary winter. The ice was thicker, more relentless than any forecast predicted. It closed in, not like a gentle embrace, but of ice. Days turned into weeks, and the ship, their home and their hope, became a prisoner. They were no longer sailing, they were trapped, adrift in a frozen ocean, 1,000 miles from any sign of civilization. The vastness of the Antarctic began to reveal its power, a silent, overwhelming force that dwarfed human ambition. The ice had become their world. Above, the sky was a canvas of perpetual twilight or blinding white. Below, the frozen sea offered no escape. The men of the Endurance, seasoned explorers all, found themselves in a situation no training could have prepared them for. They were utterly isolated, their connection to the rest of the world severed by an impassable wall of ice. The silence was profound, broken only by the creaking of the ship and the mournful cry of the wind. Hope began to fray at the edges, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty about what tomorrow would bring. Then, the inevitable. The immense pressure of the ice, which had held the Endurance captive, began to exert its destructive power. It was not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, agonizing destruction. Cracks spiderwebbed across the hull, timbers groaned and splintered, and the ship, their sanctuary, began to break apart. The sound was terrifying, a symphony of destruction played out against the desolate backdrop of the Antarctic wilderness. It was the sound of their expedition, their dreams, and their very survival being torn asunder. Shackleton, a man forged in the crucible of leadership, stood on the deck and watched his ship succumb to the ice. It was a devastating moment, the end of their voyage and the loss of their vessel. But in the face of such utter ruin, something profound shifted within him. His objective had been to cross a continent, a monumental feat of exploration. Now, his sole purpose, his only mission, became the survival of every single man under his command. The explorer had become a shepherd, and the flock was in grave danger. With the Endurance lost, they had to salvage what they could. Blankets, food, tools, and their loyal huskies were loaded onto sledges. They abandoned the sinking ship, their only home for months, and set up camp on the treacherous ice. A fragile encampment, a testament to human tenacity, adrift on a vast, indifferent ocean of white. The scale of their isolation was immense. No rescue was coming. The world was unaware of their plight. They were truly on their own, facing the raw, untamed power of the Antarctic. Time on the ice floe became a test of endurance itself. The floe, their temporary island, was constantly shifting, cracking, and shrinking. The fear of it breaking apart beneath them, scattering the men and their precious supplies, was a constant, gnawing presence. Yet, through it all, Shackleton's leadership remained an anchor. He understood that the physical challenges were immense, but the psychological battle against despair was equally critical. He fostered a sense of unity, a shared burden, in the face of overwhelming odds. He created a semblance of normalcy in the surreal landscape. They played cards, told stories, and sang songs. He organized patrols and duties, ensuring everyone had a role, a purpose. He knew that the spirit of his men was as vital as their physical strength. By ensuring they felt valued, by keeping them engaged, he fought the creeping paralysis of hopelessness. This wasn't just about surviving the cold, it was about surviving the crushing weight of isolation and despair. fellowship became their most crucial ration. The ice floe was disintegrating. Staying was no longer an option. Shackleton made a daring decision: they would attempt to reach land by open lifeboat. Their target was Elephant Island, a desolate, inhospitable rock some 55 miles away, barely a speck on the map. It was a perilous journey across hundreds of miles of treacherous, ice-choked seas. A desperate gamble, but the only gamble they had left. The immense, unforgiving Antarctic Ocean awaited them, a formidable adversary. 5 lifeboats, each a fragile shell against the immensity of the ocean, carried the men. They rowed with a primal intensity, their muscles burning, their bodies aching. The waves were colossal, the wind a deafening roar, and the temperature plunged to terrifying lows. Every stroke was a defiant act against the elements, a testament to their will to live. The sea spray froze on their faces, creating icy masks that hid the grim determination etched beneath. They were rowing into the heart of a storm, with only their courage as their guide. For days, they were locked in a brutal combat with the sea. Sleep was a luxury they could barely afford, snatched in freezing, cramped conditions. The sea ice, a constant, menacing presence, threatened to crush their fragile vessels. They navigated by instinct, by the faint glimmers of stars when the clouds parted. This was navigation at its most primal, a dance with danger on a scale that few have ever experienced. The relentless cold seeped into their bones, a chilling reminder of their vulnerability. Elephant Island. They had reached land, but it was a desolate, unwelcoming shore. A stark, windswept rock offering little shelter from the relentless Antarctic gales. They had survived the sea, but their ordeal was far from over. A significant portion of the crew would remain here, a small, isolated garrison, enduring unimaginable hardship. Meanwhile, Shackleton, ever the leader, prepared for the most audacious part of the expedition, a journey of 800 miles across the Drake Passage to seek help. The destination, South Georgia, a remote whaling station, their only beacon of hope. The vessel, one of the lifeboats, the James Caird, a tiny, fragile craft, barely seaworthy for such a monumental undertaking. Shackleton chose 5 men to accompany him, including the skilled navigator Frank Worsley. This was not just a journey, it was a voyage into the unknown, a desperate gamble against the most dangerous seas on Earth, a testament to the absolute limits of human courage and endurance. The Drake Passage lived up to its fearsome reputation. Storms of unimaginable ferocity descended upon the James Caird. Waves like liquid mountains crashed over the tiny boat, threatening to obliterate it with every surge. The 6 men lived on deck, enduring freezing spray, gale-force winds, and exhaustion that gnawed at their very souls. They took turns at the helm, their hands raw, their bodies numb, their spirits unyielding. This was a battle for survival against the raw, unbridled power of nature. They navigated by the stars and the sextant, when visibility allowed. The cold was relentless, seeping into their very bones, making every movement a painful effort. Food and water were scarce, their supplies dwindling with each passing day. Yet, the determination in their eyes never wavered. They were driven by the knowledge that their survival, and the survival of the men left behind on Elephant Island, depended on their success. Each sunrise was a small victory, each sunset a grim reminder of the miles still to cover. After 16 grueling days, a miracle. Land. South Georgia. But their ordeal was not yet over. They had landed on the wrong side of the island, a sheer, mountainous coast, impassable and wild. It meant a treacherous trek over unexplored glaciers and peaks, a journey that would test them even further. They had faced the fury of the sea, now they faced the formidable challenge of the land, a final, daunting obstacle. This was an unprecedented crossing. No human had ever traversed this part of South Georgia. They climbed, they crawled, they endured freezing temperatures and treacherous crevasses. Their boots were worn, their bodies battered, but their spirits, tempered by the trials of the Antarctic, pushed them onward. They were driven by the thought of rescue, the promise of safety, and the immense responsibility they carried. This was the final act of a desperate drama, played out on a remote, unforgiving stage. Finally, after 36 hours of continuous trekking, they heard it. The faint, unmistakable sound of a whaling station. Civilization. They had made it. Shackleton, Worsley, and their companions had achieved the impossible, crossing 800 miles of the most dangerous sea in the world and then traversing an island that had never been crossed before. They had faced down the ultimate test of survival and emerged victorious. But their mission was not complete. Shackleton immediately began organizing rescue efforts for the men left behind on Elephant Island. This was not a man who rested on his laurels. His concern was for his entire crew. He sailed back and back again, facing ice and hardship, until every single man who had been aboard the Endurance was brought back to safety. It took months of relentless effort, but Shackleton's promise was fulfilled. The journey of the Endurance expedition is a profound lesson in leadership and the indomitable human spirit. They lost their ship, their expedition failed in its original objective, but they achieved something far greater, the survival of every man. Shackleton's remarkable leadership, his refusal to give up, his deep care for his crew, turned a potential tragedy into an epic tale of resilience. It demonstrated that in the face of overwhelming adversity, human ingenuity, courage, and unwavering hope can prevail. What does it mean to survive? It's more than just breathing. It's about maintaining hope when all seems lost. It's about finding strength in unity and purpose in the face of despair. The men of the Endurance, adrift for months, then battling the elements in open boats, understood this deeply. Their story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human will to live, to protect one another, can conquer the most formidable obstacles. Consider the sheer scale of their undertaking. They were marooned on ice for over 10 months before even taking to the lifeboats. Then came the perilous sea voyage, followed by the extraordinary overland trek. Each stage presented unique and terrifying challenges. The psychological toll must have been immense, the constant uncertainty, the gnawing hunger, the bone-chilling cold. Yet, they persevered. They relied on each other, on their shared humanity, and on the extraordinary leadership of Ernest Shackleton. Shackleton's genius wasn't just in his navigation or his courage, but in his profound understanding of human psychology. He knew that morale was as crucial as supplies. He fostered a sense of belonging, of shared destiny, even when they were stranded on a drifting ice floe. He led not by decree, but by example, by empathy, and by an unwavering commitment to bring every man home safely. This story transcends mere exploration. It is a masterclass in human leadership under extreme duress. The Endurance expedition, though a failure in its original goal of crossing Antarctica, became one of history's greatest survival epics. It taught the world about the resilience of the human spirit, the power of leadership, and the importance of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. The men who sailed on the Endurance faced the abyss and returned, forever changed, carrying a story of survival that continues to inspire generations. Their journey was a stark reminder that nature's power is absolute, but human will, when united and guided by compassion, can achieve the seemingly impossible. The story of the Endurance is not just about Shackleton, but about every man who endured, who fought, who hoped. It is a testament to the strength found not in isolation, but in community, even at the edge of the world. The scientific community recognizes the vastness of the Antarctic as a critical element of Earth's climate system, influencing global weather patterns. But for the men of the Endurance, it was a personal battlefield, a place where survival was measured not in scientific data, but in the beating of a heart, the warmth of a shared blanket, the unwavering belief that rescue was possible. Their experience offered a raw, human perspective on the immense power and indifference of the natural world. Philosophy often grapples with the concept of the absurd, the human search for meaning in a meaningless universe. The Endurance expedition, in its initial failure and subsequent triumph of survival, embodies this struggle. Faced with the crushing indifference of their environment, these men forged meaning through their actions, their camaraderie, and their refusal to surrender to despair. Their story is a profound testament to the human capacity to create purpose even in the most dire circumstances. The legacy of Shackleton and his crew extends far beyond the annals of polar exploration. It serves as a timeless narrative of what it means to lead, to endure, and to hope. In a world often defined by its challenges, their story echoes with a powerful message that even when stripped of everything, the human spirit can endure, and that true victory lies not in conquest, but in the preservation of life and the unwavering bonds of humanity. The sheer improbability of their survival is staggering. They faced starvation, extreme cold, crushing ice, and treacherous seas. They were stranded for nearly 2 years. Yet, every single man returned. This was not luck, it was the result of extraordinary leadership, unwavering courage, and a deep, abiding faith in each other. It is a story that reminds us of the incredible strength that lies within us, waiting to be called upon when life demands the impossible. The scientific principle of entropy dictates a universe tending towards disorder. Yet, human beings, against all odds, strive for order, for connection, for survival. The men of the Endurance, lost in the vast disorder of the Antarctic, consciously fought against that decay. They built community, maintained discipline, and pursued rescue with a singular focus. Their story is a powerful human counterpoint to the cold, impersonal laws of physics, a testament to the fierce, organizing power of life itself. It took me weeks and countless hours poring over logbooks and faded photographs to piece together the full scope of their desperate journey. If their incredible will to survive, and the leadership that guided them, moved you, then a like and a subscribe are the best way to honor that effort and ensure the next forgotten story gets the same attention. We tell these stories because they matter. Because they remind us of our own capacity for courage, for resilience, for hope. Because the human spirit, when tested against the impossible, reveals its extraordinary strength. The story of the Endurance expedition is a beacon, a testament to what we can achieve, together, when we refuse to surrender. What challenges are you facing today? Remember this journey. Remember what is possible.